It's been 2 weeks since Labor's National Secretary warned the Prime Minister and his Labor MPs to focus on cost of living issues. He said that's what's bothering voters most. That's where Labor's got to be. Since then, I've actually seen no change at all from Anthony Albanese, who's still focusing on identity politics and symbolism instead. On Saturday, for instance, he kicked off a week of campaigning for his voice, that kind of Aboriginal-only parliament.
This is an opportunity to unite our nation.
Even the minister, who should be working full-time to stop your soaring power prices from going through the roof, spent time instead campaigning for the voice. And if you want a perfect example of this government putting symbolism above practical nuts and bolts solutions, the Prime Minister has flown to Perth to meet wealthy Labor donors and hold a cabinet meeting in WA to show that Labor cares about that state. He's also dropped in on Kalgoorlie along the way, but mayors of other towns in West Australia's goldfields says they're disappointed he won't see them about how they are struggling from the big increase in violence and Alice Springs type dysfunction ever since Albanese's government scrapped the cashless debit card. That is real politics involving real people on the ground, including in Aboriginal communities. Joining me is the panel, Michael Kroger, former Victorian Liberal President, Steve Conroy, former Labor Senator and Cabinet Minister. Stephen, it's a week ago that you yourself warned your own colleagues in Labor, and you're still very influential in the Labor Party, take Paul Erickson's message seriously. You said that a couple of times on the show. Cost of living. Are you getting frustrated?
No, I think the government's capable of, walking and chewing gum at the same time. I mean, Jim Chalmers is engaged every day in wanting to push Labor's economic message, along with a range of other cabinet colleagues talking on their portfolio areas. And Anthony Albanese is rightfully setting the agenda on the voice debate. I mean, he's out there giving speeches and talking about it. And to just dismiss all of the other colleagues as if they're irrelevant is a little bit insulting to some of those other colleagues.
Well, I didn't hear, I'll get onto Jim Chalmers in a second. I didn't hear him talk about cost of living, talking about something very different. Michael Kroger, your response.
Well, Erickson was right, and Albo should be talking about the violence and alcoholism and dysfunction in Alice Springs. He made a quick visit there, and he now has forgotten about that. He doesn't talk about it. Labor are pretending it doesn't exist anymore, and I think that's appalling. He's talking about the voice endlessly. This is really annoying a lot of Australians, I think, who think he should be talking about cost of living, the crisis happening right now, and this debacle today over the argument over what powers are involved. Clearly, if you take the Marcia Langton view, the voice members, 24, 30, 36 of them, however many it turns out to be, clearly enter the natural conclusion is that they'll have to sit in on every cabinet meeting, because there are no issues in Australia that don't affect all of us or affect the Aboriginal community. Any economic decision, welfare, health, foreign policy, defence spending, payments to the states, everything affects the Aboriginal, the First Nations Australians, as it does affect all of us. So the only way you can take her view to a logical extension is that you're going to have an expanded cabinet of a group elected MPs appointed by the Prime Minister and a group of First Nations Australians elected by their local communities. That's the logical extension of what they're talking about, Andrew.
Well, absolutely correct. I think it was a huge admission from Marcia Langton today, one of the co-designers of The Voice, and that should be pursued very hard.